going to take you through procurement. Um, Mostly when you hear the term procurement, you consider it in terms of purchasing, renting, leasing, or acquiring any services or construction preparation of certain contracts. So, in broad view of the term procurement, we find that procurement it means like the acquisition by either purchase, rental, lease, hire purchase, license, tenancy, franchise, or by any other contractual means of any type of works, assets, services, or goods, including livestock or any combination that includes advisory, planning, and processing in the supply chain system. So the first one that we're going to look at this term of public procurement. So in this public procurement, it mainly involves the acquisition of the ones that have been stated there, acquisition by using public funds. So let me take you through the next topic, which is the importance. So in our next topic, the importance of this procurement. So the importance is that there's a magnitude of annual procurement expenditure which is always very high, and the public procurement official, they're always under a constant scrutiny by the taxpayers, policymakers, government contractors, and the law in general. The public procurement official is also required, or they always make difficult choices among some conflicting or competing goals. The public procurement official also have to cope with the constant and rapidly changing political environment. So let me take you through the brief history of procurement. So the brief history, we see that in 1955, there was a central tender board that was established in the pre-independence Kenya. Then in 1978, we find that there was a supply manual which came up, and in 2001, there was Exchequer and audit public procurement regulations, that is 2001. Then we find in 2005 we find the establishment of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, and in 2006 we find the Public Procurement and Disposal Regulations. In 2010 we find the Constitution of Kenya, and in 2016 we find the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal. So I'll take you through the legal framework with regards to procurement. So the first one you're going to look at is the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So in this Constitution of Kenya 2010, we find that Article 227(1), it provides as follows. When a state organ or any other public entity contracts for goods or services, it shall do so in accordance with the system that is to be considered fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. And Article 227(2), subarticle 2, an act of parliament shall prescribe a framework within which policies relating to the procurement and asset disposal shall be implemented, and may provide for all or any of the following that I'm going to mention below. So the first one is categories of preference in allocation of contracts. The second one is protection or advancement of persons, categories of persons or groups previously disadvantaged by the unfair competition or discrimination. The third one we're going to look at is the sanctions against contractors that have not performed according to professionally regulated procedures, constructional agreements, or legislation. And last we find that sanctions against persons who have defaulted in their tax obligations or have been guilty of corrupt practices or serious violations of fair employment laws and practices. Before I take you to the next topic that I'm going to deal with, I would appreciate, before I take you to the next topic that you are going to handle, kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you like it, you can share, and if you love it, you can subscribe. And so the next topic I'm going to take you through is the principle of procurement. So in the principles of procurement, Section 4 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal 2015. In this part, we find that Section 4 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal of 2015, we find the principles that have been laid of procurement. The first one is transparency and competitiveness. The second one is integrity. There must be value for money. There must be affirmative actions programs. There must be local industry promotions, and there must be sustainable development and protection of the environment. So with regards to this, procurement process is supposed to be transparent. It ought to be full of integrity. There must be value for money, and there must also be the affirmative actions programs that comes up, and local industry promotion, as well as sustainable development and protection of the environment. So when you look at the next part we are going to handle is with regards to Public Finance Management Act of 2012. So in chapter 12 of the Constitution of Kenya, pursuant to Articles 201 on the principles of public finance, this is an act of parliament that provides for the effective management of public finances by the national and county governments, the oversight responsibility of parliament and county assemblies, the different responsibilities of government entities and other bodies. Public finance is therefore critical to relations between the governed and the governors, because without resources, nothing gets done. So finance gives the meaning to powers and lies at the heart of the political and institutional structures of every nation. The second one that I'm going to take you through is with regards to Supplies Practitioners Management Act of 2007. So in this one, you find that this Supplies Practitioner Management Act, it is an act of parliament that makes provision for the training, registration, and licensing of supplies practitioners to regulate their practice. It also establishes Kenya Institute of Supply Management, KISM, a body corporate. Section 5A establishes monitors, improves, and publish the standards of the supplies practitioners' professions and safeguards the interest of all supplies practitioners. Section 22, it provides for the disciplinary committee. The next one I'm going to take you through is with regards to the Public Officers Ethics Act of 2003. So in that Public Officers Ethics Act of 2003, an act of parliament, it is an act of parliament to advance the ethics of public officers by providing for a code of conduct and ethics for public officers and requiring financial declarations from certain public officers. So section 11, it prohibits improper enrichment by 1, use of office to acquire land or property, acceptance of gifts. So conflict of interests, collection on base, political neutrality, and sexual harassment. So that's at the what is being prohibited. Yeah. So the next part I'm going to take you through is with regards to Anti-Corruption and Economic Crime Act of 2003, and we find that this is an act of Parliament that has been established to provide for the prevention, investigation, and punishment of corruption, economic crime, and related offences, and for matters incidental thereto. Um, on the other hand, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015, the overview of this particular act, we find that it is the substantive act of Parliament that gives effect to the Article 227 of the Constitution to provide procedures for efficient public procurement and for assets disposal by public entities. So Section 4.2, there is limitations of this statute. The first limitation we see is that there is disposal of stores to another state organ without consideration. Secondly, acquisition of services between government to government. Acquisition and sale of shares or securities, fiscal agency by a public entity, investments such as shares purchased by cooperative societies, state corporations, or other public entities. The Procurement and Disposal of Assets under Public-Private Partnership Act of 2013. So those are the limitations of that particular assets. Another limitations are with regards to acquisition and sale of shares or securities, fiscal agency by public entity, investments such as shares purchased by cooperative societies, state corporations, or other public entities. The retaining of the services of an individual for a limited time, if in providing those services the individual works primarily as though he or she were an employee.